So after all this time with the beta, is Battlefield 6 just fancy Call of Duty? No. Battlefield 6 is very much its own game. And while a lot of the general FPS audience is trying to make a big deal about how some of the mechanics look like Call of Duty, ultimately Battlefield 6 takes a ton of mechanics from across the FPS genre and shows us how much better they can be when combined into one massive multiplayer package with destruction, vehicles, and squad-based gameplay. Mechanics like sliding, jumping to your back, and diving on your side have been in dozens of games from Helldivers to Battlefield 5, which, remember, came out all the way back in 2018 before Activision rebranded these mechanics as Omni Movement, which was also years before Warzone even existed. But the real reason I find this criticism so funny is that typically the person trying to make this argument is sitting there watching tanks plow through buildings, entire city blocks turn to rubble, and jets gun run enemy helicopters, while sitting there going, this looks exactly like 6v6 Call of Duty. Like, it really doesn't. And honestly, even if Battlefield has taken notes from its contemporaries, what's it matter? Because if even half the people who were going to war in the comments actually enjoyed and played the franchise as much as they say they do, it wouldn't have one foot in the grave and thus be looking to change in such big ways. And for those of you who are saying, oh, but the last couple of games sucked, so I moved on, guess what? Battlefield 6 has answered all your prayers. After years of harassing EA, we finally have a modern, boots-on-the-ground title with more weapon customization, a full single-player campaign, denser urban maps, and a higher skill ceiling with more mechanics, many of which don't even exist in other AAA titles. And just a reminder, if you missed it, this is what the next Call of Duty is looking like. Battlefield Studios has brought back the boots-on-the-ground aesthetics fans have been begging for, alongside vehicles, aircraft, and destruction in ways no other casual military shooter can, all the while giving upwards of 20 million people the opportunity to try it, free of charge. So for everyone saying, oh, but the gunplay looks like Call of Duty, thus it's a Call of Duty clone, I really don't know what to tell you.
Jake, I killed a bunch of the repair guys on there.
Repair guys on there.
I killed their tank.
I've spotted an enemy tank to your north.
You really need to open your eyes and look at the game through a much wider lens. And trust me, there are plenty of mechanics and animations that need to be reworked, especially within the gunplay. But to write this game off as a COD clone is just incredibly lazy. Battlefield serves up casual military multiplayer in a way other franchises have been dreaming of for decades. And while Battlefield is no stranger to borrowing from its peers, understand that this game is looking to take what the wider genre has made commonplace and raise the bar by doing things no other franchise can. Battlefield is special. And to get all these moving parts to work together, from vehicles to map design to gunplay to gadgets, is a massive undertaking that's gotten to the point EA has added 3 entire studios alongside DICE in its efforts. Just because you can slide on your knees and have modern-looking firearms doesn't immediately make Battlefield 6 a copy of Call of Duty, because ultimately Battlefield offers more in its sandbox than that franchise could ever dream of. But at the end of the day, if tanks smashing through buildings, jets strafing overhead, buildings crumbling to the ground, and class-specific squad gameplay across huge interactable environments isn't enough to convince you that it's not just Call of Duty, there's one last thing that makes Battlefield so much more enjoyable than COD: the absence of skill-based matchmaking. Yes, perhaps the single greatest difference between these games is how Battlefield avoids the ever-so-controversial SBMM, something I believe was a massive factor in why players enjoyed themselves so much during the beta. The entire time you're playing COD, you can feel the SBMM in the back of your head, every game getting closer than the last, and every gunfight turning into a frantic fight for survival. And while Battlefield 6 specifically has a higher skill ceiling than prior titles, the developers have admitted to focusing on team balancing within the server after prioritizing connection instead of hyperfixating on creating a curated player pool that predetermines if you lose or win. So at the end of the day, while you can tell yourself that the modern weapons, snap your movement, and recoil animations look like Call of Duty, the fact is the second you get into a match, you see that combination of everything that makes Battlefield, combined with a matchmaking system that feels much more organic, and you immediately realize this isn't COD. It's something much bigger and often much more enjoyable for the casual FPS player. At this point, Call of Duty is a hyper-distilled algorithm with gameplay systems, matchmaking, and cosmetics that work behind the scenes to curate the player's experience into what it wants it to be. While Battlefield is ultimately a massive sandbox where the fun really comes down to players' choices. And whether that's driving a tank through buildings, piloting an attack chopper, or flanking dozens of enemies with a mounted LMG, Battlefield simply offers a different experience. An experience that certainly does overlap in some areas with its nearest peer, Call of Duty, but also distances itself with a much wider gameplay experience. So at the end of the day, while this game certainly deserves constructive criticism, I'm tired of people calling this game a Call of Duty clone, because ultimately it's just a lazy hot take from players who are grasping at straws trying to continue the trend of hating on DICE. Battlefield is so much more, and after years of mediocrity, EA is finally looking to deliver a game that's more enjoyable for more players with more content and more ways to play. Battlefield 6 isn't Call of Duty, it's something much, much bigger. But guys, tell me what you think and drop those comments below, and for everything else Battlefield, be sure to stay tuned and subscribe, and as always, thank you guys for watching.